The following program, The Russ Belville Show, is intended for responsible adults only. We advocate to the repeal of marijuana prohibition for adults. We discuss the science, culture, and controversy about America's marijuana laws. We do not advocate any illegal activity and encourage all listeners to learn their state and federal marijuana laws. Opinions and claims made by guests and advertisers on The Russ Belville Show are their own, and The Russ Belville Show cannot be held legally responsible for their validity or reliability. Viewer discretion is advised.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
From the promise of legalization.
And I think that we think it can criminalize
To the agony of prohibition.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
The Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
I hear you had a question for me.
Now, here's your host, Radical Russ Belville.
Good day, tokers and tokettes, and welcome to the show. It is Wednesday, September 18th, 2013, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. And we are back at Rolla J Studios here in beautiful Portland, Oregon, to bring you some more of the latest breaking news in the cannabis community. But before we get to that, I want to thank and welcome to our show, welcome to our 420 radio family, our newest sponsor. That's right, we've got a new sponsor, Lush LED Lighting. I want to encourage you all to check them out at lushledlighting.com. We'll have some commercials for them coming up pretty soon, and maybe an interview or two. Also, want to thank everyone who's supporting 420 Radio, all you VIP members out there, and all you people who are shopping at the 420 Radio store. We've got the new Russ Belville Show pins in and the 420 Radio pins. Order those, and you will be helping us pay the bills here at 420 Radio. Got a couple of orders while I was gone. I'll have those shipped out this weekend. Also, some schedule changes coming up with 420 Radio. We got some shows coming back to the lineup coming up in October. The return of the Toker Talk Radio program. That's right. We're going to bring Toker Talk Radio back now that I don't have so much travel to do. And that'll be a welcome return. A lot of people have been missing that, including myself. It's always my opportunity to get a at-length chance to rant on things. So we'll be bringing back Toker Talk Radio in October. Also coming back in October, A Different View with Jen and Iva, and we've got Sharon possibly joining them on A Different View as well. At a new time, it's going to be a Sunday afternoon show, probably Sundays at 2 Pacific, followed by the latest episode of the Libra Lounge at 3 Pacific. So we're still working out the details, but we'll get that show on as soon as we can. Now, coming up on today's Russ Belville Show, lots of interviews. I've got a lot of videos still from Boston Freedom Rally. We're going to put that on the back burner for just a moment and get to some interviews that I've got booked for today. Cheyenne Weldon from Texas Normal, the executive director, she will be with us talking about women's activism in our Listen to Your Mother segment. We got Keith Floyd, a medical marijuana patient in Arizona, calling in at the end of the hour to talk about his lawsuit against the state of Arizona for that 25-mile no home grow halo rule. We'll explain that when we get to it. We've also got in behind the headlines a Minnesota county sheriff who's gone plum reefer mad because of legalization in Washington and Colorado, plus the 420 Radio News, and Gordon Green calling in with Irie Wednesday's Daily Toker Tune. Stick around, we got plenty of stuff on The Russ Belville Show.
We'll be right back after these messages from our 420 friendly sponsors. Support these advertisements because their ad money goes straight to the Russ Belville Show. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
I stole from my little sister.
I got straight D's.
I left my ex-girlfriend 27 messages last night.
I made my mother cry.
I let people draw on me.
I ditched my friends and let them find their own way home.
This is your 420 Radio News for Wednesday, September 18th, 2013. I'm Russ Belville. Arizona law restricting homegrown medical marijuana is challenged. This coming from azstarnet.com. A constitutional right to control your own health care is not a right to grow your own medical marijuana, according to an attorney for the state's top health official. Attorney Greg Falls is asking Maricopa County Superior Court Judge Catherine Cooper to throw out claims by two men that they are constitutionally entitled to plant, grow, and harvest the drug. The 2010 initiative allows patients with certain specified medical conditions to obtain 2 ounces of marijuana every 2 weeks. It also envisioned a network of dispensaries around the state, but the law also said anyone at least 25 miles from one of those dispensaries could grow his own up to 12 plants at any one time. Attorney Michael Waltz, who represents the men, said the mandate to purchase from a dispensary violates a provision in a 2012 constitutional amendment prohibiting any law that requires anyone to, quote, participate in any healthcare system, end quote. We'll be interviewing Keith Floyd, one of the men, in our end segment at the end of our show. Medical marijuana advocates protest removal of Lansing baby from WZZM13.com. The case of a 6-month-old Lansing girl who was removed from her parents after a complaint involving medical marijuana has become a rallying point for groups aligned behind the state's 5-year-old medical marijuana law. Acting on a petition by Children's Protective Services caseworkers, an Ingham County family court referee on Friday ordered the infant removed from her parents' home because her mother, a registered medical marijuana caregiver, had marijuana in the house, the group said. Steve Green and the CPS petition involving his daughter grew out of a custody or visitation dispute between his wife and her ex-husband involving another child. Maria's ex-husband filed a complaint with CPS saying her home was unfit for children, he said. Poll says majority of Michigan voters support legalization or decriminalization of marijuana, from MLive.com. Epic MRA of Lansing conducted a live operator survey from September 7th to 10th asking 600 likely voters what they thought about Michigan's current marijuana laws. About half of the respondents, 46%, said they favor legalizing marijuana by taxing it and regulating it like alcohol. Another 16% said they support replacing criminal penalties with fines, and 4% said they favor repealing all state criminal penalties for marijuana offenses. The question was commissioned by Michigan NORML, the local chapter of the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. Approximately 1 in 4 residents, 26%, would like Michigan to continue its present system of criminal penalties for marijuana offenses, according to the poll. New Jersey Appeals Court to hear case alleging Christie administration's stonewalling of medical marijuana, from NewJersey.com. A lawsuit alleging that Governor Christie's administration has sabotaged New Jersey's medical marijuana program with long delays and missed reports will be heard at a state appeals court this morning. The 3-judge panel sitting in Mount Holly will hear arguments today by attorneys for Richard Caparuso, a patient from Burlington County who says he has to travel 166 miles to the only dispensary in Montclair to fill his prescription because the state has dragged its feet on approving others. The state attorney general's office sought to get the lawsuit thrown out, but Superior Court Judge Mary Jacobson in Mercer County said the case could proceed and sent it directly to the appellate division, where challenges to state agencies are heard. Denver City Council okays bill that sets marijuana rules and regulations, from the Colorado Springs Gazette. The Denver City Council has approved rules and regulations for the retail marijuana industry and plans to meet with police and judges about how to enforce laws barring public consumption of the drug. Regulations include a prohibition of new dispensary or retail shops within 1,000 feet of a school, child care center, drug and alcohol treatment center, or another marijuana facility as the crow flies. They also require public hearings before licenses are granted to retail facilities. U.S. Representative Earl Blumenauer urges Oregon to implement industrial hemp law, from the Oregonian. U.S. Representative Earl Blumenauer this week fired off a letter to top Oregon agriculture officials urging them to move forward with a 2009 law legalizing industrial hemp production. The congressman, an outspoken proponent of reforming federal marijuana policy, wrote Katie Koba, the director of the Oregon Department of Agriculture, and Tracy Liskey, chair of the Oregon State Board of Agriculture, and asked them to implement Oregon's industrial hemp law as soon as practicable. This has been your 420 Radio News for Wednesday, September 18th, 2013. I'm Russ Belville. When we come back, we go behind the headlines of an op-ed published by the sheriff of Hennepin County, which includes Minneapolis, Minnesota, and how he's gone completely reefer mad. You're listening to The Russ Belville Show on 420radio.org. We'll be right back.
I'm Sub Cool from Team Green Avenger. At TGAgenetics.com, we are working on the leading edge of medical strains. Our strains are rigorously tested for THC, CBD, THCV, and other critical cannabinoids. Know your grow. Check out our genetic diversity at TGAgenetics.com, the home of Jelly Bean, Jack the Ripper, Vortex, and other award-winning cannabis strains.
Look, when I was a kid, I inhaled frequently. That was the point.
Remember, Mr. President, you once were just one bust away from being Barry the drug criminal.
Life ain't a box of chocolates gum. That's why people smoke weed and take bumps and drink way too damn much and get drunk and do it all over again.
Time for us to go behind the headlines, and in today's story, we look at an op-ed that was published in the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, written by the sheriff of Hennepin County. And I like to call this one "The Sky is Falling" in Hennepin County, Minnesota. Basically, the sheriff is looking at the Department of Justice and their recent failure, in his eyes, to do anything about legalization in Washington State and Colorado. According to the sheriff, all sorts of terrible things are going to happen because the federal government is letting legalization run amok. Let me just read some of the words for you from this sheriff. He is saying that, first of all, in one paragraph, he says, "We know that keeping neighborhoods safe will become more difficult for our men and women on the front lines because of the DOJ." And then in the second paragraph after that, or in the paragraph right after that, he says, "This will encourage other states to legalize marijuana." Well, which is it, Sheriff? You seem to be saying, on the one hand, terrible, terrible things are going to happen in Colorado and Washington because of legalization. And then other states are going to want to legalize? If all the gloom and doom you predict in the following paragraphs comes true, why would any state follow in Washington and Colorado's footsteps? The first thing he worries about is trafficking across state lines. He says there's an increased likelihood of trafficking across state lines. He pointed to states, audits that found problems in Colorado's medical marijuana program and so forth. Well, guess what, Sheriff? There has always been trafficking across state lines. There shall always be trafficking across state lines because you cannot repeal the law of supply and demand. People in Minnesota want weed. People in Colorado will find a way to get it to them. Because you can't control people smoking weed in Minnesota is no reason to use the heavy hand of the federal government to squash the people legally doing it in Colorado and Washington, two states whose voters overwhelmingly approved that legalization. He also worries that the increased availability of the drug will mean the number of drug driving crashes will increase, and goes on to point out fatalities with drivers testing positive for marijuana increased in Colorado. Well, Sheriff, all you're proving there is that more people smoke marijuana, not that the smoking of marijuana led to those crashes. There's all sorts of science behind this to explain why a positive test for THC tells us nothing about the culpability of the individual involved in the crash, so much so that the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration says so in their bulletins on cannabis. Furthermore, Sheriff, you conveniently forget to mention that the overall driving fatalities in Colorado are down year after year since the implementation of medical marijuana and will continue to drop under legalized marijuana. We also have him worrying about the youth admissions to emergency rooms for marijuana-related injuries. This is the supposed fear that there's a big increase in so many people going to the hospital rooms for marijuana, when in fact what we're talking about is marijuana-related visits, and a related visit is when you test positive for marijuana, or you admit that you've used marijuana. Go skiing, break your leg, admit you smoked a joint the night before, bam, that's a marijuana-related injury, even though you were not even high at the time that you were skiing and broke your leg. They also worry, the sheriff here worries in this Minnesota op-ed that marijuana is an addictive gateway drug that harms Minnesota's children. The gateway drug myth has been debunked so many times by so many reputable scientists that it hardly bears repeating. At least we can admit that in 1999, our own Institutes of Health called it a myth. There is nothing physiological about marijuana that makes you want to use other drugs. It's the fact that marijuana is lumped in with other drugs. There's more data to show that cigarettes and alcohol are a physiological gateway drug to other harder addictive drugs. But we don't call them gateway drugs because you don't get your Marlboros and you don't get your tequila from some dealer on the street who's also dealing coke, heroin, and meth. We need to separate the soft drug market, separate cannabis from those hard drugs like they've done in the Netherlands, like they've done in Spain and Portugal, lots of South America, lots of places, and found that when they did so, their hard drug-related problems and use went down. The sheriff is also worried. He says that he's seen firsthand in Hennepin County there's a direct connection between marijuana and violent crime. What you are seeing is a direct connection between prohibition and violent crime, because people involved in a prohibited market cannot use courts and lawyers to solve their disputes. They have to use bribes and guns to solve their disputes. When was the last time you saw a Leinenkugels distributor and a Pabst Blue Ribbon distributor shooting it out on the streets of Minneapolis? You don't, because it's a legalized market. He also worries about how many people who were arrested and how many people who go to jail that turn up positive for marijuana in the tests, which is kind of a silly and dubious stat when you consider that merely having or using marijuana can get you arrested and jailed. And again, testing positive tells us nothing about whether someone was stoned at the time of their alleged crime. He also complains the Department of Justice, this is again the sheriff of Hennepin County, Minnesota, which includes Minneapolis, also complains that the DOJ announcement sends the wrong message about the dangers of marijuana, especially to youths. Well, apparently we should set policy based on the message it sends, so I'm wondering if the sheriff can answer for me how we managed to send a message to the youth about tobacco cigarettes, the use of which is down to its lowest recorded levels ever, an addictive drug, a very addictive drug that's available to youths at the ages of 18 or 19, depending on the state. How did we manage to get that message through to the children without arresting and locking up a single adult smoker? If we could figure out for tobacco, how come we can't figure it out for cannabis? He also includes the well-debunked claims about learning harms and IQ scores with respect to adolescent use. But even if these are problems among the adolescents, that just argues for carding them and putting the marijuana behind the counter and having it regulated by licensed dealers who can lose their license if they go and distribute to a minor, instead of a criminal who never checks anyone's ID and is looking for money from anybody who can bring it to him. Finally, he says that those in favor of legalizing marijuana argue that it would eliminate the criminal gangs and violence that result from illegal sales. These are false promises. There are no silver bullets that will eliminate the crime associated with marijuana sales, he says. Well, look, nobody says that criminals are going to stop being criminals. That's what criminals do. What we are asking is, why are we allowing them to commit the crime of selling and profiting from marijuana? Why do we give criminals that lucrative adult market in marijuana instead of taxing and regulating it and bringing some benefit to society from that market? The sheriff of Hennepin County, Rich Stanek, concludes by saying marijuana is illegal under federal law and should remain that way, and that the DOJ's decision will make it more difficult for law enforcement nationwide to maintain public safety. No, Sheriff, what it will make it more difficult for is your county sheriffs and all the county sheriffs that you represent to make their budget through asset forfeiture and federal grants that target drug users, marijuana users, and no other crimes. All right, well, it's time for us to take a break. And when we come back, we'll have our Irie Wednesday song, Gordon Green calling in from Spain. Some music from Groundation. Coming right up next on the Russ Belville Show.
Oh, have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. Have you ever met that funny reefer man? A reefer man. If he said he swam to China, he would sell you South Carolina. Then you know you're talking to that reefer man.
What makes something funny? How does humor impact health and psychological well-being? How can you incorporate humor into everyday life? A concise, reader-friendly introduction to an important but often underappreciated topic in modern psychology, Humor 101 explains the role of comedy, jokes, and wit in the sciences and discusses why they are so important to understand. Psychology professor Dr. Mitch Earlywine draws from his personal experiences in stand-up comedy to focus on how humor can regulate emotion, reduce anxiety, and diffuse tense situations, expose pretensions, build personal relationships, and much more. He irreverently debunks the pseudoscience on the topic of humor and leaves readers not only funnier, but better informed. It's part of the Psych 101 series from Springer Publishing, Humor 101.
I am not a stoner. I am nothing you've heard. I'm you. We may not be happy with the world that we live in. Politicians who believe in criminalization, making deals with big pharma, and trading big money behind the scenes is not a way to stay in office. I will go to bat for you. I will go to Burning Man and smoke my brains out. I'm Terry Joyce, and I approve this message. I'm you.
Everyone knows music and marijuana go together, so let's wind up our 20 after break with the Russ Belville Show's Daily Toker Tunes, the best in pod-safe 420 music from around the web. Today is Irie Wednesday, featuring reggae, ska, and other world music genres. You can get downloads and more information about all our Daily Toker Tunes by visiting music.radicalruss.com. Now, sit back and enjoy your Daily Toker Tune.
All right, folks, time to get Irie. And I tell you, I got all sorts of great music from the Boston Freedom Rally. We'll play some of that coming up on future shows. But for today, we've got a new tune and our good friend Gordon Green, our Irie Wednesday music editor, on the line. Gordon, welcome back.
Thank you very much, Russ. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. It's a beautiful day in Portland, Oregon. I hope your day was fine in Spain.
Beautiful day in Barcelona, Spain, I have to say. This week I've got a song from a great reggae band from Northern California. It's Groundation, and they have a great root sound. Anybody who knows reggae knows about Groundation. Have conscious lyrics, and they've been around more than 15 years now. actually just left Europe. They played about 16 dates here, and this is a great tune. They're going to be in East Coast, actually, on October 3rd. They're playing in Philly. They're going to be in Baltimore. They're going to be in New York City. Going to be in Boston. Then they're going to Brazil for about 16 shows. They're playing some Bob Marley tributes. And the song is from one of their early albums called Each One Teach One. And you might have heard it. It's called Weak Heart.
All right, let's get into it. This is Groundation with Weak Heart.
Sure.
Thanks so much, Gordon.
Brother.
See the writing on the wall. To those who think they fit, will come judge us all, yeah. But they don't know how my people cry, oh, they suffer in darling Bangladesh. Claim that it is the end, yes, but they will never know. For in their hearts is only gold. And what they know is what them saying is Jarrah. They shield themselves up from the light. But hand in hand, we await the rising sun. We free people will unite and calm the champion down. It takes a weak heart to judge one another. It takes a weak heart to judge those who suffer. It takes a weak heart to judge one another. It takes a weak heart to judge those who suffer. One day, crying. One day, comes the living shadow of a weak heart beating shallow. But you think you're better than the best. Now you think you're tougher than the rest. Well, I'm here to tell you, man, you are only a human, not fit to judge who lives and who dies, lest you be judged by the Most High. And what they know is what them saying is Jarrah. Wallah, they shield themselves up from the light. But hand in hand, we await the rising sun. We free people will unite and calm the champion down. It takes a weak heart to judge one another. It takes a weak heart to judge those who suffer. It takes a weak heart to judge one another. It takes a weak heart to judge weak heart. Shall enter, no weak heart. Shall enter, no weak heart. Gonna enter, no weak heart. Shall enter, no.
My girlfriend thinks that I smoke too much pot, which is crazy because I think, on the other hand, that I don't smoke enough pot, because if I did, I would be finished, and I'm not. Look. We all have our vices in life, you know. I like to smoke a little weed. She likes to feed the baby. Different strokes for different folks, I say, huh? I'm like, look, get off my back. Isn't that your baby crying? Sorry, our baby. Blow a little weed on it, it'll sleep. Don't hiss, I'm just kidding. Like, I really have a girlfriend. Just a baby, it's weird.
Hey, how's it going? My name's Will. I don't work at a used record store. I don't own an iguana, although I'm sure they make great pets. I don't have dreadlocks or play the acoustic guitar. I can remember quite well, thank you, and no, I don't constantly have the munchies. When 420 comes around, I've still got 40 minutes of work left. I've never hit a girl on a bike with my car or shot my friend with a shotgun. I've never had to apologize for letting a girl I was watching drown in a pool while I was getting high because, duh, I wouldn't be getting high if I was around children. I'm a regular guy who works regular jobs, just like the majority of all Americans who use marijuana occasionally and responsibly. My name is Will, and I'm...
Activism begins with ACT. The Russ Belville Show features the stories of hardworking grassroots activists working for an end to prohibition in today's activist agenda.
We have this pre-recorded interview with Cheyenne Weldon.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We are joined today by telephone by Cheyenne Weldon. She is the executive director of Texas Normal. Cheyenne, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Russ. Thanks for having me on.
Now, we're pre-recording this interview, and it just happens to be a few hours after the historic hearings in the Senate Judiciary Committee on marijuana legalization in Colorado and Washington. First, I'd like to get your take on the hearings, and second, what do you think this means for the state of Texas?
Well, I'll be honest, I didn't get to watch all of it. I listened to most of it while I was at work today, and I need to go and re-listen. So I got to hear some of Kevin Sabet. I got to hear the police chief from Seattle and someone from Colorado, Leahy. I mean, I think it's everything that we expected. I think it's unfortunate that a lot of people are focusing on the negative aspects. What was said by, what's that old 79-year-old Grassley.
Oh, yeah, Chuck Grassley, the senator from Iowa.
This guy and Sabet. I mean, we expected that from Sabet. We knew that was coming, and there was so much other positive stance. And just the fact that it was even happening, the fact that they're finally taking this seriously and addressing it is just huge for all of us, I think.
And this is reverberating in Texas as well?
Well, I mean, I think everything that's been happening lately is reverberating in Texas. Between Eric Holder's announcement, Dr. Sanjay Gupta right before that, you know, I think we're just starting to feel it all. And I was in a conference this past weekend with a senator that came out publicly while I was there in El Paso that he supports marijuana legalization. As far as I know, none of our sitting senators have ever done that. There's only 31 of them. So that was pretty huge, and I think that's just a huge impact. And this panel that I spoke on, one of the representatives that was there said, well, who are we hearing from on the other side? I said, there's no one. There's three of us, and there's no one in the opposition. So, and this is put on for legislators.
That's fantastic.
So that's telling, right?
Well, I think it was also telling when Sylvester Reyes lost his job to Beto O'Rourke out there in the El Paso area or whatever district that is, that showed, because I remember reporting on some of the campaign there in Texas, and they were, the incumbent, 8-term incumbent, was using commercials, the old "what is he smoking" angle, and it backfired on him.
Yeah, I got to meet Beto briefly. He was at the reception the first night of that conference. So, that was just huge, I felt. And the other panelists were a senator from Colorado to explain the initiative process, just because of the Mexican legislators that were there that don't understand how this is happening.
Yeah.
And a Mexican legislator that has actually filed a legalization bill in Mexico, and me. So there was absolutely no opposing view. And Senator Rodriguez from El Paso, he's a state senator that came out publicly. After our talk, he said his summary was that the train has left the station.
The train has left the station. It's
That's what he said. Yeah, he said the train has left the station. We have to get on board with this. Like, this is happening. So he told the news it was inevitable.
Inevitable. That's great news. That's great to hear, especially on a panel that's going on in Texas. Now, another concern to Americans and Texans specifically with regards to this war on drugs is the situation in Mexico. And, of course, a lot of Texas border cities are seeing violence just right across the border there that is astounding. It's wartime levels of violence. Was that part of what was discussed with this panel?
It was actually. So it's a border legislators conference. So they meet. It's legislators from both sides of the border in states in Mexico and the U.S. And they meet to discuss and hear from experts on different issues that they're concerned about. So last November, when they met in Mexico, they expressed concern and interest on what Washington and Colorado had done. So they scheduled a panel for the next conference on that matter. And so some of the other issues they talked about were like immigration, infrastructure, climate change, a variety of things. And while we were there, as a group, we went over across the border to a ceremony in celebration of a signing of a treaty. It was a property deal. But we got to experience, the checkpoints, the border checkpoints, and having to walk in between them and just see how ridiculous and invisible this fence is. These are really just two communities this line is just imaginarily drawn through. There's still back and forth traffic and commerce, and it just was a really interesting experience. But that the soon-to-be El Paso chapter, I think, has a really different outlook because of, like you mentioned, the border violence. They were very serious when I met with them.
Another angle that was explored in these Senate Judiciary hearings is something that I think is of concern to many people on both sides of the marijuana reform issue, and that is the children and the possibility that marijuana as a commercialized product could then be marketed or sold to children, try to entice children. I know Kevin Sabet brought that up many times, and even, I believe, Senator Grassley brought it up as well. As a mom and a woman working in marijuana reform, how would you respond to that?
So I think as a mother, I would look at it as a parental issue. Where you put your highly addictive, possibly fatal medication is as important as where you put your marijuana edible. It's a parental issue. We can package it however we want, but whatever the parent does is what's important. It doesn't matter that it's candy, as if adults don't eat candy or eat brownies or eat cookies. It doesn't make it marketed to a child because it's candy. The safety of your children should depend on the parent, and if there's poor parenting, then that has to be addressed regardless of drugs. I mean, that's how we should deal with parenting issues in children.
Excellent. And, one thing that we talk about on the inside here in marijuana law reform movement is the dearth sometimes of women getting involved. But I got to say, over the past 3-4 years with you rising to Texas NORML and a bunch of other great activists in Georgia and all over the country rising, and the NORML Women's Alliance coming to fore, I think a lot of this is getting addressed. Can you address the rise of women in this movement just in the time that you've been involved?
Well, I've thought about it a lot, and I've kind of changed my mind about it. I used to think, and kind of sell it, I would say, that when women get involved, that things change. And then I start looking at other movements, and I think what it really is that when things are starting to change, more people get involved that weren't previously, of different demographics. So we have, people that don't actually consume getting involved, people, in the gender equality movement, people who are actually in traditional family relationships. So at the end of a movement, it's pushed forward by women in alcohol repeal because they were the unlikely ally. That's who comes out at the end. That's who comes out whenever we're at the tipping point, the people that you wouldn't expect to support it, and that's what pushes us over the edge. And it's often women because they're caregivers, right? We're looking for the children. We're looking for safety and concern for the community. That's our role in society. So it changes the conversation.
So in the marijuana movement, then, the rise of women in the movement also parallels the involvement of groups like the NAACP or the labor unions who previously weren't involved in it either.
Exactly. So that's what we're seeing. The women is just a more huge, broader demographic, I think, that you're seeing rise, where the others are maybe a little smaller factions that are just getting involved also.
All right. It's pretty exciting with the memo coming out saying the states should move forward, or they're going to allow the states that wish to move forward with marijuana regulation to move forward. This, of course, has to open up the possibilities of getting something done in Texas. But, of course, you don't have the initiative petitions like we do out west and some of the other states in America. So do you see these changes having a positive effect on your legislature, that they might want to address some marijuana policy in a positive way?
Absolutely. I think all of it has a snowball effect. It all has a snowball effect, and I think one of the biggest changes that we're going to see here, or biggest impact that we'll see because of another change, is when Arkansas gets medical, which will happen, we know, very soon because they have ballot initiative. They almost got it last year. So I think that's going to give Texas a real comparison, something that they can't, our senators, our representatives can't say, oh, well, that's California, that's Colorado, it's totally different here. Well, when Arkansas has medical, that's going to kind of pave the way, I think, for us. But just the other states getting legalization between now and our next legislative session and the following one, which will be 2017, I would expect, from estimates I've seen, we'll have 10 states by the time we have our second legislative session in 2017, because they only meet every other year. By then, I think we will have made some changes already in 2015, and we'll be ready for full legalization, or at least medical with dispensaries.
That is very, very good news to me. I sure hope it pans out that way. Cheyenne Weldon is the head of Texas NORML, and Cheyenne, I'm wondering, what does Texas NORML have planned for the upcoming, fall and winter seasons, and maybe looking ahead to the summer?
Well, we're looking ahead to that legislative session, and we have a campaign that we've just been starting over the past month, where we're partnering with Marijuana Policy Project and other NORML chapters and other organizations to raise funds and match up to $100,000 from a California donor and hire a lobby firm here in Texas to represent us and help push legislation forward, identify which representatives are for us and where we need to work, and just help us get this done. So we are raising funds on our own to help support that campaign, and it's going to happen. They're being hired next month.
Excellent. If people out there listening want to help you out, you got some contact information for yourself and Texas NORML?
You can find me at Texas NORML. My first name is CHEYANNE at texasnormal.org, and our website is texasnormal.org. You can find the lobby campaign there. You can join, buy merchandise, and we have a monthly newsletter that you can subscribe to.
All right, that's activism, boots on the ground right there with Cheyenne Weldon and Texas NORML. We appreciate you coming here for our activist agenda, and we wish you the best of luck in that upcoming legislative session.
Thank you so much, Russ. Thanks for having me on. It's always good to talk to you.
Big thanks to Cheyenne Weldon for pre-recording that interview with us last week. She's busy with being a mom and doing the Texas Normal stuff, and it's a lot of work, so we appreciate her taking the time to join us. Get involved with Normal Women's Alliance by checking out Normal Women's Alliance on normal.org, also normalwomen.org, I believe, and at Normal Women on Twitter. Coming up next, we've got a special guest joining us for a cannabis community chat, Keith Floyd, who's one of the two men suing the state of Arizona over the 25-mile no home grow halo rule. You're listening to The Russ Belville Show. Hey, we'll be right back. Thanks for joining us.
The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
Respect the law, but know your rights. And share if you can.
Ask me any question, I'm gonna plead the fifth. Unless you asking me if I wanna smoke a spliff, then I'll be coming over. I'm gonna take a lift. You know I leave you feeling like you got the touch of the gift.
Yeah, this is Brian the Red, and you're listening to 420radio.org. So get a little irie.
The cannabis community includes a diverse set of activists and nonprofits working to end the prohibition of marijuana. We take the time to hear the stories of reform on the Russ Belville Show's Cannabis Community Chat.
Welcome back, everybody. 47 after the hour, and joining us on the telephone, we've got Keith on the line. Can you hear us, Keith?
Yes, Russ. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here. You know, we got Bago Schwago, who's one of our music editors. He's down there in Arizona, and he said, you got to talk to this guy. And because you are dealing with one of the things that I find most loathsome about Arizona's medical marijuana law, and that is the rule that says if you live within 25 miles of a dispensary, you can't grow your own. And that just seems to me wrong. Tell us about how this came to be, how you got into this fight.
Okay. I come from, I was 2 years ago, the doctors left me paralyzed and addicted to 4 different pills. And I first used this, we got a medical marijuana law, we got our law in, and then because they, quote unquote, according to the law, they had 2 weeks from the time they issued cards, they had to get the dispensaries open. And they dicked around, excuse the French, but just I'm calling it like I see it.
Oh, yeah.
And so we were allowed to grow for 2 years because there was no dispensaries. All of a sudden, these dispensaries start cropping up, and they're taking everybody's rights away. Well, of course, when I came out of the pill coma and I started learning and reading this law.
Keith. Hello, Keith. Before we go much further, let me make sure people understand exactly what we're talking about here. With that Arizona law, the way they wrote it was that if there was no dispensary, if you were farther than 25 miles away, then you could grow your own. You could grow 12 plants. But what happened then is that people went and got their tents and got their lights, got their clones, started growing, had the right, and then somebody opens up a dispensary 24 and a half miles away. You got to stop growing. Now, did they give you notices or anything about that?
No, it's basically when your card renews, they just, and this is the thing, they just do not allow you to cultivate.
Okay.
And you can appeal, and the other party in this case, he appealed and took it all the way to the administrative hearing, and of course they denied him.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't even hear his arguments, in fact.
Jeez.
So I was reading this, and then it dawned on me. We have what's called Article 27, Section 2. Janet Brewer and the whole conservative right, they pushed this in, and it says, no law, directly or indirectly, shall compel me to join any healthcare system.
And this was kind of the anti-Obamacare thing, wasn't it? Okay.
They wrote it anti-Obamacare, and then 2 years later, we have medical marijuana. But we have to understand, we had voted it in the same year California did. In fact, our polls ended an hour earlier, so we had the first law in 1996.
Right.
Of course, they implemented theirs, and our legislature hijacked ours twice.
Right.
So that's why when they voted their anti-Obamacare law in, we said, fine, we have a Voter Protection Act. And now it's done at the same time. So that is the only way we have the medical marijuana 2 years later is because of that chain of events.
So is it your legal theory here and why you're suing, basically saying that because you're forcing me to have to go to a dispensary rather than growing my own, a right that I used to have, you're essentially directly or indirectly forcing me to become part of a healthcare organization?
Yeah, literally, they are. In the definition of a healthcare system in our Constitution, it says self-provider. Now, I have a question for Will Humble.
Will Humble, by the way, is the Arizona director of the state health.
Yeah, the director of the health department, who by chance does not have a medical degree.
Okay.
So he is determining our medical choices, and he is not a doctor. I want that to make that clear to everybody. This man is not a doctor.
Right.
So, and now the University of Washington came out with a study that said garlic is 100 times more efficient or more effective as an antibiotic than antibiotics are.
Garlic.
Okay. Yeah, raw garlic. So here's my question to him. Are we going to need medical garlic cards?
Now, I got a question.
My name is Garden. We're going to have to check to see if you're growing illegal garlic because that's a plant you can grow for yourself and it heals the body.
Yeah. Now, let's get back to the trial here and the court case that you're pushing, because we got a question from our chat room that wants to know what your causes of action are. How are you able to bring this suit?
You mean what was the means?
Yeah.
I myself stepped up. I got my Social Security back pay, and I put it out there. My life savings. That's what got us started. We have a couple sites we're getting donations to help fund this fight. And I would love to get in touch with some libertarians, because not only are they violating Article 27, Section 2, excuse me a second, they're also violating Articles 14, Section 15, which is the state can't regulate the transportation of any product or commodity. That's in our Constitution.
The state can't regulate the transportation of any commodity?
Any product or commodity.
How does Arizona have grocery stores?
They can't regulate it. See? They're creating a monopoly, because they are regulating only so many people, a limited monopoly, and that's against our Constitution.
All right. Well, let's go back to the cause of action here. Basically, you were a patient who was growing. You were able to grow legally for a while.
I'm actually an author. I have a small little grow book I sell, and I show how I grow it for $50 a pound.
Okay, so
I wrote a little book to teach everybody how they can grow their own for $50 a pound.
So basically, this is a right you had before the dispensary opened up near you. And then it's a right.
I was a self-provider. They forced me to become a self-provider because they did not enact the dispensary part of our program.
Oh, I see. So your cause of action isn't that you used to be able to grow and then they forced you to a dispensary. It was that you were forced to grow because there wasn't a dispensary.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
And now they're revoking that. So I'm already established for 2 years a self-provider under our Constitution.
Gotcha. Okay. So
constitutionally, if you don't want Obamacare, it's your choice. If you don't want medical marijuana, it's your choice. Doesn't matter what the choice is. They can't restrict your choice in Arizona. And this would end it on a federal level. If we could get a constitutional amendment nationally, like they did in 37, if we could get this across, it would end the medical marijuana and end the Obamacare.
Now, what I read from the attorney who's representing Will Humble in the state, he said something to the effect of, well, nobody's forcing you to be a medical marijuana patient. You're voluntarily choosing to be a medical marijuana patient and then comply with the regulations that are set in the medical marijuana program. You don't have to be a patient.
No, medical marijuana is not a choice. Without it, I'm an addict, let's face it. I've had 4 back surgeries. I got a cadaver bone holding my spine together. Gotcha. I had pain, bad pain, and I was an addict, and I was able to kick. I've been pill-free 2 years. Now, I refuse to I don't trust doctors. I'm being honest. I don't trust doctors. I don't trust the government. I don't trust anybody.
Now, the attorney that's working with you is Mr. Was it Gregory Waltz? Was his name?
Michael Waltz.
Michael Waltz. The other guy was Gregory. Okay, Michael Waltz. And I know these attorneys, they cost a lot of money. So, do you have any funds or like a fundraising site or any information?
Yes, we have. There's 2 fundraiser sites and a GoFundMe site.
Okay, go ahead and give that out.
I'll say the 25-mile rule. So if you do a search for that, and on Facebook, there's several pages.
Okay, so what would be the easiest way for our listeners to be able to get you some money or get you some help or ask for more information?
If they can go on to Facebook and go on to the Class Action 25-mile rule page.
Class Action 25-mile rule. Okay, on Facebook.
And at the very top of it, and the very first thing is a fundraiser site.
All right. So how are you holding up with all of this? It sounds like you're pretty raring to go and looking for a fight. You sound pretty spunky.
Well, I know what it's like to. Well, I ended up in the hospital a month ago because I've been without medicine. I eat the leaves, and this is a little pass on a little knowledge. 11 months ago, I couldn't walk. I needed a walker, a back brace, and a knee brace. Within 2 months of eating my leaves from my garden, and it's organic. Don't panic, it's organic. That's my little catchphrase.
Yeah.
It has to be organic because I eat it. And within 2 months of eating it, I was walking.
Wow. That is great news.
It's a miracle, yeah. And I eat it in every meal. And since 2 months ago, I stopped my garden. I've been in the hospital once. My knee now, I need a knee brace. I'm being harmed. And our dispensaries, by law, have to dispose of their leaves. They can't sell them.
Really?
The flowers is the only usable part, according to our law, that the dispensaries can handle. Everything else has to be disposed of.
That is so sad because we are hearing so much from so many people that are getting the benefits from juicing cannabis leaves.
And if you juice with ice chunks, because one of the cannabinoids, THCA, changes at like 140 degrees, so you get the most beneficial to the body if you keep it cold.
Well, damn, just this story just once again shows that while we have to fight for medical marijuana because we have to help the sick and disabled, but it just never goes far enough. There's always some catch. There's always some trick that ends up hurting someone like you.
Yeah, well, they all want to tax and regulate my health, and they can, sorry, excuse the French, they can go to hell. I'm an American. I'm an Arizonan. And in Arizona, we have this right. My body, my choice is my right. And if I choose to grow my food and my medicine, I can. And there's nothing they can say about it. And if I sell it now, they can come talk to me. If I do, as long as it's for me, my consumption, there's nothing they can say.
Yeah, it's very strange to me when Arizona Governor Jan Brewer can say that Arizona's right and the feds are wrong on immigration, but that Arizona's wrong and the feds are right on medical marijuana. Makes no sense.
Yeah. And it's all about, let's be honest, it's all about tax and regulate.
Yeah. Hey,
because Article 2, Section 13, if a dispensary can be open within 25 miles of the dispensary, so can I, because we have equal protection, and that's also in our Constitution. So this was just the best one. There's no wiggle room. That's why we went with the Article 27, Section 2.
All right. Well, Keith Floyd, we will keep in touch with you and find out how your case turns out. Thanks for joining us here on the Russ Belville Show.
Thank you for having me.
All right, folks, that's all the time we got for today. Thanks for joining us. And coming up next, a new episode of Free Weed with Danny Danko. I think it's the live one he recorded at the Seattle Cannabis Cup, maybe one of the two that he recorded there. Check out 420radio.org. Buy something from our shop. The new pins are online. We want to send you one for everyone involved here. And thanks to the Boston Freedom Rally people. We'll talk more about that throughout the coming weeks. I'm Radical Russ. Until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.